I'm Jared Hoagland. I work for the Middlesex County Road Department, the General Superintendent, also the Middlesex County Public Works Association President, and the Chairman of the trade show also. So I think we rewarded this trade show back in 2019. So we were kind of full bore ahead. We got the ball rolling and then we had to press pause. So now we're back going again, just 2 years later. So yeah, so I guess the biggest thing why we promoted Middlesex was why Middlesex. It's centrally located, the 401, 402 access. It's accessed by townships and counties all around us, north, south, east, west. So we can get people drawn in from all different areas of the county or the province. It's close proximity to a wide variety of cultural and entertainment options. London obviously being the biggest sector, so close, we're 25, 30 minutes away from there, but what we're trying to do is promote from every part of the county, from anywhere down from the Wardsville area over to the Putnam up to the Granton locations. So we're just trying to bring everyone all together and promote the Middlesex County as a whole. So yeah, the local benefits obviously is provincial exposure. Put Middlesex back on the map, put Southwest Middlesex back on the map, let people know what we're all about and good places to be and everything. It's a county-wide business engagement, so we've been reaching out to businesses all over the county, not just Strathroy, kind of getting everyone involved. And we've had a very positive aspect with that. So yeah. And then obviously this is nonprofit, so any proceeds that we receive, we'll be donating back to local charities. So we like to keep the dollars in the communities where they came from. So yeah. So and then obviously it brings more people involved. So there's more people in the area. So obviously that promotes businesses, accommodations, local businesses, restaurants can obviously benefit from this also. So our organizational team, myself, obviously here, then we have John, which is a great resource, and there's Dennis and Kelly also with AOR, that's a huge benefit. They do this every year. We're not trade show experts, so we're public works guys that get the work done, but then we also see the benefit of doing this too. So we have a cohesive group of municipal staff everywhere from all aspects of the county. The city of London's involved. And again, we have Marlo's he's been a big advocate over the years here, so he's been a big member there. And then we have some suppliers and contractors that are definitely putting their help in, giving legs on the ground and offering up supplies and equipment just to make the show possible. And then the biggest thing is it gets the county working together with everyone to make us all work as one big solid team. So that's the biggest thing what we're striving for. So the next steps, while we're getting close, it's a month away. So yeah, obviously we've been reaching out to all the different townships, and we've been doing some meetings here. So obviously we've been going through the agendas here. So we're now the Southwest Middlesex promoting the show. We're finalizing the plans. We're just down to the little nitty gritty, little checking the dots and crossing the T's and everything else. So we're just building on this, and we're just building on the success from previous years. Last year was in Barrie, so it goes east and west across the province. And next year it's in Cornwall, right? So then it goes back out east again. So it kind of moves around the province, so it's not just stagnant in one area. So what we're asking for is just allowing your staff to assist in planning and execution of the event. Allow your staff to come. We encourage everyone to come. We encourage all the council to come. We encourage your contractors to come, and your suppliers. Please come out and please visit. It's a free event. We encourage everyone to pre-register, just so we know the numbers and that. But it's free for everyone to attend. And then just promote. And then what we're asking is just promote your trade show. Just let people know what's going on. Let the big excitement going on in Middlesex County and your next door neighbor to Southwest and what's going on. And we just really would like your support. That's the biggest thing. So we encourage public works, your drainage staff, your recreation staff, planning. Like it's you got her. It's got a little bit of everything. So yeah. So we're looking forward to a great show, and we hope you guys can all attend. So
that sounds good. Yeah, huge event. Any questions, Council? Well, we certainly look forward to coming, gentlemen, and we know that there's a lot of, is the volunteer community involved in this process? Yeah, in terms of gate things and things like that, like, is there do you rely on a volunteer community to some degree, or is it all professional?
Mostly professional.
Okay. Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Some should, not for this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Is the county serve team involved in it at all?
They were approached, but actually we have had so much support with all the municipalities. They weren't really needed. So we were trying to use the public works staff to promote the show.
Mhm.
Then we have more public works at the show and that. So, but they were reached out to and they were ready to go. It was just, we had such support from the townships to
Yeah.
help out. So.
And you have an advertising budget, I'm sure as well. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Sounds good. Yep, the marketing aspects are looked after them. That's great. Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Mhm. Okay, well, that's great. Last call for questions? I don't know whether we have any money left to spend at that show. That's the thing, we have to. Yeah, that's right. We might see a big hoe or something like that. and
We
wanna
even
buy
have
it.
farmers. Farmers like to come and they like to look at the tractors and all
Yeah,
the big
I
mowers
bet,
and
eh?
all that and the blowers and it's
Yeah.
quite the excitement. We even
Oh.
had I think we have some high school students coming out. We have some high school. We've reached out all to the local county high schools and we have like 4 classes I think coming. So yeah, so.
Good.
all
Okay.
different parts, so yeah. So.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can bring closure to this and thank you very much, John and Jarrett. We thank you very much for coming and
Thank you.
best of luck. And I'm sure you'll see some of us there. Okay. We will have a recommendation from council that the Association of Ontario Road Supervisor presentation be received as information. Is there a mover for that, please? Councillor Haggett, seconder. Yeah. We've got that. Any discussion? Seconded by Don McCollum. All in favor? Carried. Yes. Yes, Alan, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor. We experienced a technical issue in the first 5 minutes where audio was not broadcast to the public. With your permission, may I do a recap of the first 5 minutes?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. All right. At 1:31, the mayor called the meeting to order. Councillor McGill and Councillor Choi submitted regrets. The mayor provided a land acknowledgement, and then we moved into the OARS presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alan. We have our second delegation before us, and familiar faces. Ontario Clean Water Agency. I understand we have Sam here and in the background, he's got some familiar faces as well. And we appreciate you coming. Sam, you make yourself right at home.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Alrighty, so I'm here to review the annual reports for the distribution and the 2 sewage plants. So I'll start with Schedule 22 of the water side of things. So Schedule 22 is a requirement under OREG 170. It's presented annually. This report is to be provided to members of council by March 31st, which I know was completed before and the motion was passed. So I'm just here to do a quick overview. Some of you are familiar with these facilities, but I also see some new faces. So I'm going to go in a little more detail on the systems themselves this year. I'll try not to be too long. We'll try to get home for the Leafs game tonight. So So for the section 1 in the overview of the drinking water system, it's the entire drinking water system is captured under this report. So there's the Southwest Middlesex distribution system. So what's included in the Southwest Middlesex distribution system? It starts in actually West Lorne, just on the edge of West Lorne. There is the Southwest Middlesex Reservoir. That reservoir is fed from West Elgin, but technically it's fed from the Tri-County drinking water system in Eagle. So that's where Southwest Middlesex gets their water from. From that reservoir, it is then pumped to the Glencoe Tower. Also pumped to, or sorry, the Glencoe Tower calls for the pumps to turn on, but that system or that reservoir feeds Melbourne, Glencoe, Appin, Wardsville, the village of Newberry, and the village of Bothwell and Chatham-Kent. So Chatham-Kent and Newberry also run through the Southwest Middlesex distribution system. Within your system, like I said, you have the Glencoe Tower and the Melbourne standpipe. Those provide pressure when the pumps aren't running, and obviously some storage for firefighting capacities in that. There's approximately 200 hydrants that we maintain. And yeah, that essentially encompasses, plus all the piping and whatnot, all encompasses into the Southwest Middlesex distribution system. So that's the overview. We'll get into the compliance with regulations. So the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks inspects the system annually. So they come once a year and sit down with myself and our compliance team and goes over a whole list of questions. There's like sometimes 300 different questions that they have to provide an answer to. Depending on the answers to those questions, you're then evaluated and given a risk rating. It says here at the time of this report, we had not received the inspection rating or the risk rating, but there was no non-compliances identified in the report. So that tells you we since received that risk rating and was 100%. So that's always what we strive for, obviously, is 100%. And less than that is not very acceptable in our view, and typically requires us to provide a summary of actions or corrective actions for those non-compliances if there were any. So quick overview of the flow. The total flow from 2021 to 2022. I lost my spot here. There was the total flow is a decrease. So what you purchased from Tri-County decreased by 0.2%. Some of the other flows in here, they look a little goofy when you see like a 40.9% increase and a 250% increase. We recently completed some major maintenance at the reservoir. We have the ability at that reservoir to use West Elgin's pressure and smaller pumps to pump the water to Glencoe. They're much smaller, so they require longer run times. The tower doesn't exchange waters near as often. So you'll see those numbers return to more normal numbers in the 2023 report. So don't be too concerned about that. The main one that you want to pay attention to is the 0.2% decrease in total flow. The rest is there is appendixes here for the flow. You can see the differences in that. We did have one AWQI, which is an adverse water quality indicator. Very minor. It was for total coliforms. No boil water or anything was like that was needed. It was just a resample of some flushing, and just to ensure that it's most likely either operator error, they're very finicky bottle. There can be cross contamination, or what seems to happen a lot too is the errors at the lab. So quick resampling and flushing, and that was determined to be a non-issue. So that essentially is the water report. Want me to jump into the next one? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so again, annually are required to provide a annual report to the MECP based on our environmental compliance approval. So that's what this report is. So again, I'll get into I'll go over the overview a little bit more detail. So there's a collection system that's gravity fed sewers that feed into raw pumping stations. So we have 3 in the village of Glencoe or the town of Glencoe. We have one on South Street, one on Industrial, and then our main pump station on Victoria. They're all equipped with generators to back up power. We also dose alum at the Victoria Street pumping station. We call that our dual alum dosing point. That helps us farther downstream at the sewage plant, and I can get into that. But essentially, from the Victoria Street pumping station, it pumps to the aerated lagoons located on New Biggin. From there, it has about a 90-day retention. It flows through some baffling. It's aerated. And then it enters the SAGAR system. So the SAGAR system is submerged attached growth reactor. So what this system is it's a submerged media within a we call it a SAGAR bed. So it's filter media that's these bugs that's essentially attached to the media, and the water flows through it. It's also aerated. And that's how we get nitrification and our ammonia removal. So it's a little more complicated than that, but that's essentially what it is. So we call that the SAGAR system, and we reference that entire sewage plant as the SAGAR system. So if you ever hear me reference the SAGAR, it's the Glencoe sewage treatment plant, which I'm referring to. After it goes through that system, we add alum for the second time. So hence the dual point alum to further reduce phosphorus. It then goes through a clarifier and then through some disc filters, and out the door it goes. It's a fairly simple process. So yeah, and you'll see through our in this report, all the lab results and everything like that are well below objective. You know, we have our odd objective exceedance, but nothing reportable to the MECP. It was a good year for effluent quality. There is a flow section. Just gotta find it on my sheet here. We can control. We can't control the raw flow that comes from the pump stations, but the lagoons that are there provide a buffer so that we can control what comes out of the lagoon. So we're able to control our flows through the actual plant. I believe there's a section in here. Sorry, just bear with me for flows. Oh, right here. So the average daily flow is in 2022 was 34% of the rated capacity of the facility. So there's lots of room for growth there. But then that is down 15% from the daily average of 2021. And so this effluent number is more the number that we can control. And you can see that it was pretty close. It's about 11% decrease from 2021. So small decreases, but fairly consistent. Won't get into all the lab results as there's really not a lot to talk about there. Operating problems and corrective actions. So inflow and infiltration issues have been noted in the collection system. It's a very prominent problem. This causes excess flow at the pump stations during wet weather events. In February 2022, there was a need for vacuum trucks at the Victoria Street pump station as a result of this wet weather event, and high flows. The station required continual monitoring. There have been ongoing issues with reaching capacity at the wastewater treatment plant while maintaining compliance with the effluent limits. So the additional alum feed point, which I spoke about at the Victoria Street pump station, was reinstated on the raw flow. And this has proven to be effective at reducing the phosphorus concentrations of the effluent during high flow periods. But in 2022, there was no significant modifications. For maintenance, we do have our work management system program that is provides us with work orders each month and quarter and annually to for our general maintenance. We did some wasting pump repairs. We did some generator repairs. We cleaned up the wet wells. Did some major compressor maintenance and some filter maintenance. But beyond that, there was no major maintenance in the Glencoe system. Our effluent quality was monitored and everything was good on that side of thing. And there's some community complaints. We received a complaint on February 19th regarding a sewer lateral backup. Once we attended, that was determined to be on the issue on the homeowner side. We did have an odor complaint received at the Victoria Street pump station. Once we attended, there was no apparent odor that we could find and no other complaints were received. And then we did have a disruption of service on the 28th where a contractor had cut through the sewer lateral. So nothing concurrent and ongoing. So in summary, the Glencoe wastewater treatment provided effective treatment meeting all compliance limits. Yeah, it's good. Wardsville left. I'll just
Unless Sam's more comfortable taking questions on the specific system first.
You want to start this now and then we can get into words?
Sure.
Question period is over.
Sure.
Yes, council, that is a large part of the work that Aqua does. And we will get to the Wardsville system shortly, but prior to doing that, it would be good to focus on the subject that's been presented right now. And are there any questions to council? Yes, go ahead. Deputy Mayor Schuldeis.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Thanks for the report, Sam. Very informative. Appreciate it. We've had ongoing problems with the Victoria Street pumping station for quite some time. And at the end of March this year, we had quite a heavy rainfall.
Yes.
And we experienced flooding. Some homeowners had some flooding. And I'm just wondering why the sucker trucks weren't called out at that point.
Yeah, so for sure. So we have a protocol that was developed and it's changed throughout the years. We used to be much more vigilant. I shouldn't say vigilant. We're always monitoring, but the vac trucks used to get called a lot sooner. And that was based on kind of experience and whatnot. Then through past administrative side things in the municipality and monitoring the cost of those vac trucks, it was quite costly. I think the one time it was upwards of closer to $50,000. We were instructed, Aqua was instructed to change the threshold of when we called that vac truck. That has since changed again since the large rainfall in March. We've gone back to, we've developed a protocol closer to where we were before, where we reach a certain point at the pump station and then we call the vac truck, no matter whether there's rain coming or if it's going to keep raining or if it stopped raining. If it's reached a certain point, then we would call that vac truck. And that was through an experiment almost of such. When we got to a certain point, the resident was able to tell us when their basement was no longer flooded. And we noted that level and then went like a half a meter or more. I can't remember exactly, but a half a meter before that position or that point, we will be calling 2 vac trucks. Okay. So we're back to where we were before. It was just through discussions with kind of previous staff members that were here that threshold did change.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, one follow-up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. We've set money aside in this year's budget to twin the line from Victoria Street out. And I just wondered if you would have some sort of a timeline where we would be looking at that work being.
Yeah, so Aqua doesn't that's beyond Aqua's scope. Well, I will be heavily involved, but we're not involved in that project.
The,
For 10.
starting around, the Director of Public Works can answer that question. That's a Public Works project that we are actually working on preparing tender with County Legal Services currently. So we're hoping that that will be completed in the next week and a half, I think.
Good question, but we may have to wait for that answer on. Okay, Moral,
Thank you.
yeah. Would you like to speak to that briefly? Yeah, but we're not expecting a Moral full report on this, just
Yeah, I just to echo what CAO said, we are working on it with the county to prepare the request for proposal for engineering services. So it is in the works.
Would we expect the work to be done this year, do you think?
I think we'll have a better idea of that answer once we get the consulting engineer working with us and providing us with a schedule.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd hope so. We had a lot of projects that were hanging around back from 2018, 19, 20 here that we want to get cleaned up. We don't like to carry anything over. I know Treasurer certainly doesn't like to carry anything over. So the intent will be to get it done this year if the availability of the contractors and the price comes in accordingly and everything that council has aligned us with. So give us some time on it just to get everything ready. Just for reference sake, council, because the procurement policy was brought up earlier, so I'll reference it on this. It is a request for proposal. So we are asking for proposals to come in from various engineering firms, et cetera. So it will come back here before it goes because that's following the procurement policy to the letter, that proposals come back and tenders don't come back. Proposals do though.
okay. Sounds like it's under control. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, well, Sam, that is a good report, but let's carry on and examine the wards for us. Don, I didn't miss you there, Don, did I? Okay, alrighty. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship. So the Wardsville system, this is kind of a unique system. So we'll get into kind of the overview and then I'll hit the kind of main points of the report. So the Wardsville sewage treatment or sewage system, you have your collection system and then you have your sewage treatment plant. So the collection system in Wardsville is called what you call a small bore system. So each resident, each individual property or building or whatever has essentially a clarifier tank or a septic tank that the municipality owns. So the municipality owns up to and including that septic tank. So we operate or maintain those, we install them, everything. So this tank collects the solids that come out of the home, and then the decant or the supernatant that comes out of that tank is then collected into a very small system, like 3 inches. Where compared to Glencoe, you're talking 8-10 inches for your collection system. It's a small system. There's 3 pump stations there as well. One at the golf course pump station. And there's one a little closer into town, Kennedy Street, sorry. And then we have one, the main pump station that is back kind of on the edge of town that feeds directly to the sewage treatment plant. So it's a unique system and it presents its own unique challenges. The tanks are always full. So people that maybe don't quite understand how it works, they open the lids on them and think that the tank is full and needs to be pumped out. So we get lots of those calls. So then Aqua will go there and inform the homeowner, no, they're always full and they're always just outflowing. We provided a list every year from staff at Southwest Middlesex, and we go and inspect the tanks, and I believe it's on like a 5-year rotation. So we select, we check the sludge depth, and we check the scum levels on the top. So that's kind of an arduous job as well, but Aqua does look after that. And then any tank that does need to be pumped out based on those measurements, Aqua arranges for those tanks to pump out. So like I said, those tanks are owned and operated essentially by Southwest Middlesex. So the pumping costs are Southwest Middlesex costs. So just wanted to kind of explain that system because it is kind of unique. It's the only one that I know of, and I don't know if Dale knows of any other ones like that, but It's not terrible, but it's definitely unique. We'll just call it that. Then you get to the sewage plant, and it's just your conventional extended aeration tank or aeration system with sand filters and the UV system. It runs very well for the most part, and it's just that's when it gets to that end, it's quite common, quite conventional, we'll call it. So that's the system itself. So our sampling and our effluent quality was pretty good. We did have 12 exceedances of, objective exceedances of total phosphorus. With the cost of chemicals these days, and you guys won't know this, but the cost of chemicals have gone up substantially in the last couple of years. So not that we weren't before, but we're really trying to dial in the efficiency of our chemical dosing. So there were some times there when we flip flop over just right on that line. But like I said, they were objective exceedances, not reportable non-compliances. So we feel we have it dialed in pretty good, but that's why you're going to see 12 compared to 5 the year before. But again, it's not, they're not like something that's reportable to the MOE or anything like that. As far as general maintenance goes, we did replace a compressor. We worked on our Allen pumps, the blowers, the pump station, replaced the pump station. We did major airline overhauls at the sewage treatment plant. We replaced all the UV bulbs. We replaced with the internals of one of the clarifiers and replaced a bunch of floats at the plant. So yeah, it's in the summary, we did have the objective exceedances due to the alum dosing issues and then the airline issues, but once addressed, the plant, well, it ran great.
Good. Any further questions on that? On the OARS system? Yes, your ward, Councillor Mink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Sam, what capacity is the Wardsville system on?
Yeah, sorry, I should have brought that up. I skipped over the flows. Apologies, I don't have my mouse in this new computer. It's hard to scroll. Oh, there we go. So we're averaged 84 cubic meters a day, which is 28% of the plant's rated capacity of 300. Which is down 18.6% from 2021. But that sounds like a lot, but it's when you're talking about 300, it's easier to get to 18% than it is when you're hundreds of thousands, but it is down. I found that across all my sewage plants, the flows have been down. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was a little bit drier last year. It certainly affects the sewage flows.
Okay. Last call for questions. Well, Sam, we want to thank you very much for your efforts that you do. Megan and Dale, all of you, we thank you again. It's a huge responsibility that you are having your shoulders here, and we appreciate the work you do.
Thank you very much for having us.
Council, we're at the consent agenda. I'll go through these from 5A to 5E. Yeah, Alan, you need a recommendation to accept that?
Yes, please.
We'll give you one, okay? Yep. A recommendation to accept the report from Aqua, please. Councillor Myers, Councillor McCollum, discussion. In favor. I think I need a holiday, Council. I'm going tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, consent agendas before us. I'll go through these, and council, it's my pleasure to pull any of these out if you wish to discuss them. 5A, the minutes of April 26th. 5B, the right to disconnect policy, and I would like Mike to speak to that if you would, please.
Your worship, thank you. I'm not a member of council, but I'm asking for this one to be pulled. I'm using this as a placeholder for a couple things, and they're just to give council some information and a heads up on where we're at administratively. The right to disconnect policy, I'm just going to tell you, legislatively, you had to pass this, and I want to thank council because you're very good at this. I'm going to be quite frank. There's not really any concerns or worries that I have. The mayor and I have discussed a couple of things as far as procedurally goes. So if you've all got a good memory or a pen, one of the best ways to reach out and handle staff is always first by email. If you get an email and then you get an out of office, you know that we're either tied up or we're in a meeting or when we're next available. Those are for the items that are maybe not as crucial or essential. And then step 2 would be a text to say, I'd like to call, it's an emergency situation, or at the very least to find out if we're available, we're not in a meeting, take your call. And then the last being the call, of course, if we don't respond to your text in a timely fashion. So it's just really some housekeeping. Other than that, I'm ecstatic. And I think every other staff member that I've talked to is feeling the same, that you're all really pretty good at this. And I just want to flag that you all actually are. There's a lot of places that put this in place. If you had over 25 employees in the province, you had to have this, and not all are as good as you, I can tell you that. Just reference for a couple of things, you have a vacation policy for staff here that hasn't actually been followed very well, and I'm going to tell you that that is changing. If some will recall, we've had some departed staff that we've had to pay out a really large amount of vacation that has accumulated over the years, and we're going to put an end to that. As a manager, I'm a firm believer that if you have vacation and you haven't used it, and that's kind of the idea. Everybody's talking about work-life balance and finding that niche in their worlds. That is one way you get it, is by taking your vacation. So it will be put back to this year. All of the vacation that is outstanding, that has carried over, has been allowed to carry over up until now, will be used by that staff. And moving forward, that I think staff are allowed to carry over 5 days if it is authorized. So it'll go back to that. I rest assured it'll be cleaned up and taken care of at the end of 2023. And the last one, council, unless you have any questions so far, but the last one is the work from home policy. I can tell you that everybody's back here and everybody's in the office, and they're here on a regular basis, and it's working out just fine. Thank you.
Council, any questions you'd like to ask Mike through the chair? Seeing none, we'll move on. Mike, thanks for that update on that. We're at 5C, lease agreement updates. Yes, Councillor Vink, please go ahead. If it requires an action of council, we'll have to defer it. If it doesn't require, if it's just a comment or an inquiry, you can do it now.
One time we had property in the Dustin Isles, one of my farmers from Watertown, never was home. And so I'm sitting this year to go on tenant, so that everybody has equal access to that property. And so I don't agree that the price doesn't go up or go down. Still to come out.
There is an element of business involved in that, and you know, that aspect is behind the glass. But Mike, do you comment on that at all?
Alan has more answers on this one because he's been preparing the lease agreements, so I'll let him go talk to this one.
Okay,
Go ahead, Alan.
through the mayor, with that, the intent wasn't going up. It was preventing going down. At no point in time would we have an agreement where we would take less funds for municipality. This was just one of those opportunities where we saw that we could maybe be a little more efficient in council's time with mostly the same. This proposal provides the CAO with some lateral movement when it comes to negotiations. So we may be able to increase funds and or find some other things that could be beneficial to the municipality. Besides that, I'll give it back to you, Mayor.
Yeah, I'll jump into your worship. Is in the absence of, when we do tenders, we have rules we follow. When we do the reverse, there isn't actually a policy that, so we have an absence of a policy in this regard. So if it's council's wishes to have these come back and have them reviewed on an annual basis, the other way you could do it, just a suggestion, is that you can set a fee or you can set a rate for it right now and then do a multi-year contract and call it a day on that. In this case, we put it to a year because there's a lot of land sales happening in that area. And we didn't want to bring to council something that was multi-year that may not be good in another 9 months or after this crop season. But yes, as the clerk has pointed out, if it's going to reduce, it would never ever be considered. But if it's going to go up and that's your wishes, then we can go out. But if we're going to go out, we better darn well do it soon because planting season is upon us. So that's just something, a piece of advice.
Yes, follow up to that, Councillor Vink.
Yes, well, I was speaking to the tenant and he was waiting for an answer from our municipality, and I realized that we had a changeover. So I don't think we should do anything for this year, that the tenant should keep the land. But in the fall, my wishes would be that we would tender it out. And traditionally, we've done it, say, for 3 years. That's typically a lot of times how farmland is rented out. And that way, everybody has a chance at it.
Alan and Mike, what about an examination of the market values of rent? Like, is there any consideration? The market values do change from time to time, and sometimes have a bearing on crop prices and things of that nature. Is any consideration given there?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I think the best advice I can give you at this time is the councillor has made a good point, that if he wants to move ahead with the situation with the tenant for this season, I think what the councillor is saying is he would like to have a review and do this as a tender process moving forward, see what that would look like rather than even an analyzation of market value. And I'll let council have that discussion and give me what they'd like to do.
Okay. Sounds good. You want that in the form of a motion? Or it can be Martin, what is your wish? Do you want to pick that up again in the fall, or would you like to make that a motion now that in the fall of 2003 that tenders go out? Is that your wish?
Well, maybe you would want to hear the opinion of the other councillors, but that would be my motion would be, yes, we remain with the same tenant this year. And sometime in the fall that we do a tendering process for a 3-year term.
You can bring it forward now, or you can put it forth and notice the motion that we can do it when other councillors are present. Okay, you want to do it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion's on the floor that a tender go out in the fall on a three-year contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
And yes, Alan, any clarification on that you can give council?
Your worship, I have no issue with the resolution. It's outside of my scope within the municipality. However, I should note that those properties may change in the next 3 years. The boundaries.
Okay.
Well, that's always stipulated in the lease anyway.
Yeah, that's correct, Your Worship. So I would like to just make a suggestion to the motion, if I may, that if it's a 3-year contract, that perhaps it gets extended on an annual basis past that, with CPI being the increase. Just trying to save some time, unless you think the market would fluctuate that much. I'm good either way.
I think we have to be cognizant of staff efficiencies and business efficiencies. We have a significant amount of business to do here, and I think efficiencies are always saves us time, and then therefore saves us money. But from what I get, I want to respect the wish of the horseshoe as your chair. And I believe Councillor Scholdice has seconded that motion that it be tendered for a period of 3 years. And Is that covered it? And there'll be the other covenants and codicils in the leasing agreement will be as a conventional leasing agreement has. Is that correct?
Yes, except I don't necessarily agree with CPI, I'm sorry, but because the markets do change. And I mean, one not long ago, land was renting out for $100 an acre. Now it's 300 or more. So market changes. So I think we can do it every 3 years. You're keeping up with the market.
Okay, we'll leave it as is. That's your motion. All right, it's been moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scholdice. Is there discussion? Okay, all in favor? Carried.
The clerk will forgive you for.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be as complex as that. Yeah. Canada Day funding. I understand that we did not get our money from the federal government this year. No one did. So that's unfortunate, but our CAO assures us that we're still on track. And the 5E is the Canada Day Subcommittee meeting minutes, and there's a codicil in there that there may be some errors or omissions, but we can live with that, I think. And 5F, municipal and utility vouchers. Thank you very much, Council, for calling in your questions. I appreciate that. Good efficiency of time. Councillor Haggard, go ahead. Yep, go ahead. With Kristen not being here, we'll do our best to answer them. If not, we will get you those answers. Yeah. That was an agreement that has been made with the previous council after very considerable discussion. It is our belief that we were giving them approximately $6,000 to $7,000 a year for well over a decade and a half, and their costs have gone up, and the viability of the agricultural society was the sustainability, I should say, was in question. And though the lands are owned by the agricultural society, they are used very often as public events. The land the swimming pool law is on is their land. The arena is their land. Soccer 2000, Project 2000 is their land, and they gave us that property. So this is kind of a composite measure for that. Any other discussion on that?
Just a note of housekeeping there. The arena is actually our land. So the arena has its own footprint.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's 2 street allowances as well.
Okay. Go ahead.
They didn't give us, they own the land. You maintain it. I'm just trying to figure out.
Without that being a sustainable enterprise, the agricultural society, we may end up owning that building, those buildings. And we could not run those buildings for $17,000 a year. I can assure you that. And don't forget too, that they are the largest benefactor in the municipality. They give more money away to charities than any other organization, including the Lions. They give a ton of money away.
I think that should be discussion down the road. Because I have no idea what deals in the area, what contract. I think council should be aware of what it is. So
Then you have the privilege, Councillor Haggard, of making a recommendation. Do you want to report back from staff at a previous meeting, or are you just earmarking this for discussion, or what's your wish? We'll do what you want.
I'd like to have a report. I'd like to get a report out.
Okay, from staff? Okay. Is there a second for that? Councillor Myers. And our CAO was not here at the time, of course, so he will have to do some research on that to find out where it came from, and we'll certainly bring it back to council. Any discussion among councillors? And a report regarding the funding we provide for the Agricultural Society be brought back to council for discussion. All in favor? Carried. And Jody, you had one more question on vouchers you wanted to ask, is that correct?
Yeah, just curious on, voucher for the Apple station, the Apple ballpark.
I'm not sure, yeah. Yeah. Don, do you know anything about it, that ballpark?
So, Your Worship, the council was kind enough to ask me this in advance, and with Tristan being sort of indisposed this week, I didn't have a reasonable answer for him at that time, but I will have that answer before the week is out, and I will email council accordingly as to what that voucher was for.
Okay, we'll get that to you, Councillor Haggett. 5G, Township of Puslynch. Oh, in this one? Yep, go ahead, yes.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I appreciate the answer I received on voucher for the work being done on the municipal hall renovations. I will, however, ask that council receive a report on the project, including whatever the tendering process was and what the scope of the work was. I've had some local contractors ask me about it, so.
Okay, yeah, our CAO says he can provide you with that information now. Is that acceptable? Okay.
Mind not me having carpal tunnel from typing this out. So the project was approved in a previous budget, and I think it was as close as 2022. The work, or might have been 21. I don't hold me to that, but it was one of those 2 years. So it was actually approved in that budget, and from a tendering process, it's actually a request for quotation because it falls under that category. So quotes were received, and we went with the lowest one on this. Just for dollar value sake, I believe it was $38,000 was allocated for this project here. And this project is coming in at about $28,000 before taxes. And I think the amount that you're seeing there that was sent out was half of the amount for the upfront work.
What was actually budgeted?
$38,000.
No, but in the line, what was it?
It was under exterior office repair.
Exterior office repair.
That's
okay.
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Good question. Okay, any other questions on the vouchers? We can move on then. 5G, Township of Puslynch regarding roadside litter. Seeing none, then the consent agenda has been completed, and action discussion taken on the various subjects from 5A to 5G. I'll entertain a motion from council that the consent agenda be received and the actions taken on the items that council had determined. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Haggett, a seconder for that. Councillor Vink, discussion. All in favor? Carry. We're working our way towards the bottom, council. Number 6, Committee of Adjustment. There are none. Public meetings. There are none. We are in the staff reports. Alan, the first 8A is fire, and Chief Johnson, we're very pleased to have you here. You come up and make yourself comfortable. And Gary, we're delighted to have you. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Regarding this matter, I got my report for recommendation approval of the first PPA. A lot of number crunching.
Yeah, it certainly did, Gary. The math looks like we're about $103,000 under budget, And that represented about 1% on our taxes, so we are very pleased with that. Council, are there any questions you would like to give to Gary or to the chair? Yes, Councillor McGill, please go ahead.
Yes, that was a lot of units that we had all at one time. So I forgot about the history of everything. Why did we have so many units? Like a lot of, some fire departments have so many units every year. Can you elaborate on that, Gary?
So it's easier if you buy them all like this, they're all the same. Sure. So when you buy them in bulk like this, I'll go back to our history. We bought only a few at a time over the years, and eventually those require repair and replacement. Some of them require different training. If we buy them bulk like this, you have 15 years trouble-free. They have a 15-year warranty. You know what you're spending. You're going to be done. It's all the same. Everybody has the same training. It's the same equipment. And it's good for interoperability because most of the departments surrounding us have the same. That's why we're buying so many at a time. So it's done, and when you're done, you look ahead at times and go, okay, we're going to be replacing these. You'll kind of know what it's going to be. Right now, it's kind of hit and miss. And seriously, I got stuff out of service, in service. It's all over the place. We don't think we're going to see that with this. They have a really good history of reliability.
I think logistically, it's easier to manage for department.
Absolutely.
Gary,
Yeah.
in terms of
Inventory wise.
yes, big time, because I know you have to monitor them all the time, but now you can.
Yeah. Spare parts wise as
Yep.
well. I mean, we don't carry many spare parts, but still, if they're all the same, then we know what we need.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Schuldice, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew, and I'd like to thank Gary for the very thorough report here. So just to be clear, we won't need to buy any more for the next 15 years. This is full complement.
No, you won't have to, unless for some reason we have a population explosion.
Right.
And
always possible.
the amount of units should be good for many years to come.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Gary, if in the event, I'm sure that you're involved in a very physical work and dangerous work, and are there can some of these units become redundant after a fall at a fire? Can they be damaged in the fire?
So there is a lot of reliability built into these things. They do go through rigorous testing. Most of the stuff is covered under warranty. However, some stuff, if it's smashed or something like that, we would have to replace. Right?
Yep.
There are some external
That's good stuff.
things that we make, and that's just normal pretty much through anything.
Wear and tear.
Yep, wear and tear.
Okay, thank you. Last call for questions. Yes, Don, please go ahead. Councilor Cole.
Gary, what happens on new recruits and stuff like that? You have to buy a new uniform.
Okay, so this is not new uniforms. This is SCBA.
You don't have to buy a mask.
That's true. We may have to buy masks, but they can be repurposed. So from what I've seen, the turnover in the fire service, there's lots of times that we have in-service stuff that can be repurposed and just the only thing they would have would be a mask, and that's it. So
Uniform.
uniforms, they're not part of this though.
Not
They're not part of this.
Just breathing apparatuses only.
It's
Yeah.
just breathing apparatus.
Yep.
Yep. It's just breathing apparatus, and they're good for 15 years.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much, Gary. And I have a recommendation that council approve the proposal price as specified by AJ Stone Company Limited for supply, delivery, and training of self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for a price of $370,257. Someone move that, please. Councillor Vink, and second for that motion. Councillor Myers.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'll jump in here. There not a second recommendation to this report that I'd added that the funds be returned to reserves, the additional funds? That's my next question. It's supposed to be on there.
Yeah.
So if
And I
I
can-
may modify the motion for council's consideration, and that the additional funds of $103 some odd thousand, will correct the amount, be returned to the fire reserves.
Okay. And the mover and the seconder for that, they're comfortable with that? Okay. And that's good. It gives us some contingency money there. And Alan, you're comfortable with that? Okay, good. Questions? I'll call. All in favor? Carried? Yes.
Listen, I want to take a moment, Your Worship. Thank you for indulging me here. The accolades I gave Gary on handling his first tender in this realm and the report that's written with this are only as good as the computer you type them on. I certainly pass those on to him, and I know he's passed that on to the people that assisted him with this situation. We brought some new tender processes here as far as documentation goes. Mauro a lot of his expertise in this as well. And I know, Alan, you sat in on this and assisted Gary through the process too. So, but Gary did a great job. And I want to tell you here rather than just telling you over, like I had before, but it's well deserved.
You bet. No. I'm glad we got you, Gary. Continuing with staff reports, we're on 8B administration. This will be Mike Henry's report regarding staff retention. Mike, at your leisure, walk council through this.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was a request of council. So I have brought back a lot of things that a lot of municipalities are doing out there. The big one being that most administration, not outside boots to the ground people, not unionized people, but the salaried administration would move to a 35-hour work week. And that the second piece was the flex time schedule. People are looking for work-life balance, and we're finding out there that a lot of organizations that, including some that we lost a couple of people from here to, just offered a little bit more of that work-life balance in the 35 hours. As you can see, I listed probably 68 different municipalities that have that. That list does not end there. They're right across the board. And because you're not even touching any of the labor standards as far as overtime goes, council can remove that from the overtime policy. We don't need that there any longer. The one key factor here, and I'm sure everybody saw it over the news over the last few weeks, is 9 in 10 Canadians are looking for a 4-day work week. I'm not necessarily in agreement with that, especially in the public sector that we work in. But this certainly offers the best of both worlds and actually enhances our customer service with reduced downtime at over lunch, et cetera, for staff to make sure we're taking care of the residents that come in. That's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll certainly help.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. That request for that report was moved by Haggett, seconded by Councillor Choi, and we're on November 23rd, and we're pleased to have that. Any questions, Council? Yes, Deputy Mayor Schuldeis.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'd like to start with appreciation for the hard work of our staff. In reading this report, however, it became clear that there's 2 separate proposals. I have no problem with staff becoming salaried, providing there is no change to vacation time or benefit expenses. The flex time suggestion did prompt some questions. This may already be part of the policy, but I think that there should be a maximum amount of bank time allowed so that it is not a means of increasing vacation time. I'm assuming that there will be a means of monitoring these flex hours. Obviously, most would want to take a Friday or a Monday off, but we don't want the office empty on those days. I'd like to move that we approve the recommendation on employees becoming salaried with the flex time approved on the trial period with a 6-day per year maximum, not to be simultaneous, with a report to come back to council after 1 year on it. Thank you.
Yes, that is a variance of that.
I want to, if I may,
Yeah.
because I can't tell if there was questions being asked there or that's just a motion that's happening. Because if there was questions along the way, I'd be happy to answer them through the process. Because there was, I think, a few questions. Yes, to answer your question, the date when you accumulate to have a day off, you actually have to use it then. You can't accumulate these and add these to the vacation. And I apologize because recommendations, you don't want to get too wordy and lengthy on that, but the policy would be that they need to be used. There is no carryover, so it is also in the same year. But generally you would see every 3 days, and the day you're taking off is by your department supervisor's approval. So what happens is you don't run into everybody taking the same Friday off and the office being closed. That's not the intent of this. The intent of this is to say, okay, instead of taking a day off for a doctor's appointment, use your flex day. Instead of that day you have to go home, wait for the contractor to come to your house, use your flex day. I've seen it work in many organizations, and it works because people tend to use the days that they need, whether they've got sick kids or whatever it may be, then they're not burning a vacation day to do that. They're using the flex that they've earned by reducing their time off during the day. So I think those were two questions within there I wanted to answer. So before it was anything further.
The reiteration of your comments, I knew that much of that phraseology had been addressed. The optics of taking Monday or Friday off are not good. And the CAO and myself had discussed that, and that will be discouraged. Yes, if any other, that would not be cultivated in an office culture. So Deputy Mayor Schuldice, are you revising that motion, or do you want that to stand? Or just go back to the recommendation? Are you satisfied with that following the CAO's comments?
So is there a maximum per year?
Generally, how it works out is it never really gets to a maximum because you can't earn obviously time while you're off. So when you're taking your vacation time, you don't earn time. If you're not able to satisfy the half hour or whatever it is you're going to sacrifice on a daily basis, obviously it doesn't accumulate. So usually it works out to be an average between 9 to 12 days at the very most. That works out
Per year.
Per year.
That
Yeah.
seems like a lot, but
Correct, it does. What I can tell you is it does not, what happens is people just don't use sick time. And so that's generally what happens.
I could take that clause out, but if we could still just have a report back after 1 year.
I'd be
Just see
more
how-
than happy to bring a
I think that
report
would
back
be,
up.
that was.
You'll have people that don't even utilize this as well. So I think that's a great idea, actually.
Motion.
So the motion, the recommendation is as documented with the subject line that staff bring back a report, a review following a 1 year period. It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Haggett, discussion. Mike, in terms of lunch hour, does it give it some flexibility? Some will take a half hour lunch, some may take a 1 hour lunch. Is that built into the mechanics of it?
I pick on Alan all the time. So the clerk, he likes his hour. I don't know where he goes or what he does, but that's his. So,
Okay.
but somebody,
Privilege is there.
that's correct. So
Okay.
he doesn't have to opt in to do it, but for somebody like frontline staff, like our frontline staff, I tend not to use names that don't hit me on that one for, closed session. So, but they're able to offset, and they don't have to offset as much. So if they're not taking an hour, then you're not having another staff member sitting there saying, okay, well, now I got to cover for an hour. And it just,
Yep.
it makes it a lot. There seems to be, in taking the temperature on this, on what staff would like to see, there seem to be the frontline people will be covering the desk more often. Let's put it
Good.
that way.
Yeah, that's what I see. From our discussions, there would be the vision of more faces when people come in. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Chair will call. All in favor? Carried. Mike, you have another one on here under staff reports, the hiring policy. We'll get to that.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so in the over the course of time and a little bit of a couple debacles along the way, we looked over the hiring policy, and what I'd like to do is I'm bringing this for council's consideration to just make the policy clear, because right now there is a definitive clarity on the hiring for my position, and it says council shall establish a committee. Absolutely makes sense. That's for purposes of the recruitment process and interview process and make recommendations to council. Then there is no definitive break other than a period. This is for the position of department heads. The mayor or deputy mayor shall serve on the hiring panel led by the chief administrative officer, and the chief administrative officer shall make recommendation to council. I'm not really necessarily thinking I need to have that power. I would, however, go back to the first line where it says that council will set up a committee for the purposes of recruitment and have that carry through for not only my position, but for the department heads as well. And that would include, of course, the mayor and deputy mayor, and whomever they'd also like to see on the
Additional ones
on
can be
the
appointed,
committee.
yes.
Sometimes, no disrespect to the two of you on the committee, but Don may have intimate knowledge in wanting to hire a new drainage inspector, which I'm sure you will. And Ed might have intimate knowledge on something to do with the arena.
Mhm.
So things like that. So I'm trying to keep this open for other considerations of council who would also like to join in the committee, or if council saw fit. So if that's not the case, it's no harm, no foul. We are running into a position we are about to hire. It would be the mayor and or deputy mayor or both, and we can go from there. But I'm just bringing this for consideration for everybody to discuss.
Thank you, Mike, very much, and I'm glad that this is coming before us. So for members of the previous council, you'll remember that it was our understanding that the mayor and deputy mayor would be on that committee. I like the idea that or an additional member of council can be on there, and Mike and Martin and I had a very pleasant experience in the interviews of the CAO, and I think we all learned from that to some degree. To give you an example, and this example is not given without some meaning behind it, but in the current position, when you have an all-male panel and there are candidates that are female, it may be very wise to have Councillor Choi on that committee as a woman, and to interview female candidates. It makes them feel more relaxed, not as intimidated, and she may have insights that men do not have on that as well. So I think it would be advantageous to the municipality to have, even in this hiring exercise, that Mike and I would be present. And I like the idea that it be led or co-led by the CAO and the mayor, and Councillor Choi part of that, if she's willing. I regret she's not present to ask her that, but if in the event she would accept, I would like to see her on that committee as well. And then we'll pass that around the table in the future hiring as well, that Councillor Myers and Councillor Hagan and Councillor Collin can get involved in this too. I think we'll make sure everyone gets a turn. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Hagan.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I know it's disrespect, but you're really busy, and we are a council. Like, I think it should be passed around, or maybe two councillors or staff. Like, it doesn't know. I don't believe it should be the mayor and deputy mayor every time. You guys are busy enough, and we are a group of council, just led by two people making decisions. And it's 8 of us, right?
Yeah, we're busy all the time, but you got to remember that my relationship with them is more intimate than a council crew. Okay, I work with these people every day. Okay, so that's why I like to have my hand in that. I have to communicate with these people on a daily basis. Councillor Hagan, okay,
Right?
every day.
We are members of this.
Yep,
council,
I know you are.
Right?
Yep.
And we deal with people too.
Yep.
And we have our own life
And
experiences.
I'm exercising that privilege to council in my suggestion I just made. And we will go around the table and make sure that these councillors have. It's something we haven't done in the past. Councillor Vink was put in that hiring committee because he's the most senior councillor at the table. And that's why we included Martin in hiring that CAO position. So the chair has never had the opinion that council don't matter when it comes to hiring. I have always tried to treat the table with respect and engage them in any aspect of this. So what's your wish, council? Yes, Councillor Vink.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with your suggestion that Deputy Mayor may have to take over for you. So I believe Deputy Mayor should always be on the committee as well. And one other councillor, you have too many on there. You have to allot time to set up meetings and things like that. So I think that's a good proposal, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and one councillor that can be rotated.
Okay,
And so fortunately, I've already took my turn, so we can move on to somebody else.
if in the event there's, I don't like to, select by gender, but, is there any discussion on Councillor Choi being part of it? And I shouldn't speak on her behalf. She's not here. I don't want to, chair without the authorization of, Amy being here. Any advice you can give me on that?
I would hesitate on doing that with her in her absence, unfortunately, just because she may not be comfortable with
Okay,
that. If I may keep your language clean then, so if I can please keep Alan moving, and forgive me, I just lost my report. That if you're going to leave it as the mayor and deputy mayor, please clean up the language to read for those other two positions then as well. So it's clear. So if I get hit by a bus, you've got the next time around, you're going to hire any department heads as well in that format, because it is unclear here. And that's why
Okay,
I'm just
all
looking,
right.
that was my primary objective, is to get this cleaned up first.
okay,
The second piece is, if you want it to be always the mayor and deputy mayor, or if you still want it to be and or, then be clear on that as well. And if you're going to add a councillor in a rotational fashion, please, I would say put that in
Okay.
there as well.
I like the mayor and or deputy mayor and one other member of council. Well, what's your comments on that? Deputy
Mayor
Mayor,
Mayhew, I'm just wondering why we would have or why wouldn't it be just the mayor, the deputy mayor?
I may
and
not
one
be
member?
available, or you may not be available. And or,
I will definitely make myself available. But I do like the idea of having a third counselor. It really worked well when Martin sat on there. It seemed to work okay with the three of us.
Then your worship, go with and if the one of the parties can't make it, well, that's way life is. Right.
okay. Yeah, the only,
And I'm just, have you approached Councillor Choi on this,
No.
or is this, because I just think we should be fair to everybody here. We shouldn't just pick one person right now. We have to have some sort of idea how we do this.
Okay,
Whatever we decide today, we gotta get this thing going,
okay,
okay? We gotta get these people hired.
Yep.
And we gotta get things moving. My opinion.
Well, there's a couple of councillors at the end of the table here that have some recreational experience, Councillor Myers. Would you be interested in sitting on that committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we will clean up the language. Alan, I am gonna need your help here, that we're gonna have the supervisory positions, department heads, which would be the CAO, Public Works and Treasury, would be the mayor and deputy mayor, and one other councillor chosen by council.
Correct. We got it.
Okay,
That's it. Yeah, we can clean it
and
up.
we will see if this passes. And Ed, if in the event this motion does pass, we're pleased to have you on that hiring committee. Okay. Okay. Any clarification required by the chair? And Councillor Haggett and Councillor McCollum will make sure that we get you in here in the near future too. I'm hoping we don't have significant staff turnover, so that we have to get you that quickly, but
Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Alan, do you need a motion?
So your worship, my understanding is that we're gonna go with, that the deputy mayor and mayor be on the hiring committee if available, and that one counselor be added to the hiring committees as selected by council, and that Councillor Myers be added to community service management position hiring committee.
yes. The forthcoming, the forthcoming, okay. All right, is there a mover and seconder? We got that? Okay. Councillor McCollum, Councillor Vink, seconded. All in favor? Carried. And,
The pile of resumes shall hit your computer.
yeah, yeah.
I need them back as soon as you can.
Well, yeah, well, I'm connected to wherever I'm going, so, maybe they'll have to look at me on a computer. And I'll be there. And you know what? I forfeit family and vacation for, the municipality very often. Almost daily. Okay, Mike, I think we're, yes,
Your worship, just so that we can tie that up with a bow tie, I realize we missed that. Council received that report for information.
on the, retention report.
Yes.
On the hiring,
policy.
okay. That, that'll be under separate motion then, okay? All right, the hiring policy report was given as stipulated. We have tightened that up to some degree. And the CAO brought it towards council for good reason that it did need clarification. Can I have a motion that that report be received? Yeah,
If we make changes though, is it?
council received the
Okay,
report
so
for
just-
information
okay.
is the first line. Councillor McCollum had his hand up. You'll second that, Deputy Mayor Schuldice?
Yeah, yes, I will.
All right, all in favor? Carried. And this is a tough one. Morrow, one of your first reports, you got a dilly here, this one, eh? So, this will break you in. And Chris, thank you very much, Chief Johnson. I really appreciate that report and for saving us $103,000.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, for council is a report for River Drive with your recommendations. Mr. Learman from Street Associates is also here to provide an overview of work that's been completed to date and provide some information on option 3 in the report. As you all are aware, River Drive has been closed for some time now due to some failures. Extensive amount of work has been completed on River Drive in 2010 and 2020 to try to repair the road. The full amount to date spent is approximately $330,000. The report before you has 3 options for council, considering for council's consideration to implement option 1. I was asked to provide a map, so in front of you is a map. The highlighted area is the proposed area to be closed, which again pertains to option 1. Option 1 details closing River Drive at Big Bend Road and south of 2688 River Drive, and that that we allocate the closed road as a private road to the adjacent property owners. Sever the 20-meter road allowance, allocate 10 meters to each adjoining property owner. Of course, the land transfer would need to be negotiated with the property owners. It appears there are 3 owners down there, down the front of the road. The cost of all the legal fees to transfer the land will be shared amongst the property owners, and that the municipality install a gate, posts and signage to ensure that it's a private road. Option 2 was to create an annual budget to repair the failures. That amount could change due to the amount of work that's needed from year to year. This option does not fix the problem, and staff can't guarantee that the road will remain open all year round due to any major weather events. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Newman from Spirit Associate to speak about the work completed to date and to provide an overview of option 2.
Thank you very much, Mr. Castelli, and we're delighted to have the engineer here. Thank you very much, and please take the floor and guide council through this. We'd appreciate it.
Before Mr. Learman starts, I'd just like to know when he's done with his scope, we're also here to answer any questions.
Okay, good. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lehrman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start with a summary of the project. We got to this point and how it started. I'm not familiar with works that took place in 2010. I am very familiar with works in 2020. So in 2019, our office was contacted to meet Greg Storms on site. I believe there were a few other representatives of Southwest Middlesex there. The road was in various states of disrepair, and the adjacent slopes as well. We're fairly close to the river on the, we'll call it the east side. The road is very steep, 14–15% grades, gravel road, relatively steep embankment on the west side that goes up to the farming properties there. So 2019 was when the project for design was initiated. The design took place over the winter season, 2019, 2020, was tendered to contractors. Prices were submitted March 2020. We went with the low bid. 291 Construction was the contractor. I know them well and they do good work. It was constructed essentially summer to early fall 2020. We had full-time inspection with our firm doing essentially the grading. We also had our geotechnical sub-consultant EXP out as needed. They're our geotech experts. We had them assist with the design. They did a geotechnical report of the roadway, as well as the adjacent slopes, provided input in their geotech report of essentially what slopes on the adjacent embankments were deemed safe based on their boreholes. We incorporated those recommendations into our design. It was tendered, approved, constructed. 2021 is the year following. I believe I was contacted at least, I would say once or twice by Greg Storms to meet at the site with some concerns. At the time, it was noted that it was after significant rainfall events. We haven't done any, verification of what event it was, to be fair, whether it was classified as a 2-year storm, a 5-year, 10. I don't have that information, but it was deemed that there were some issues, and we met on site, essentially myself every time, and assessed it with Greg. I think Rob was there as well to assess it. The issues seem to be concentrated at the top of the peak, so it's a gravel road that drops off. Well, I won't say quickly, but it goes from basically 0% to 15. There's a driveway on the west side, right at the top, and it seemed to be that the runoff that was hitting the road allowance, essentially the road, it's a gravel road. It's hard to slope at 2%. It's basically flat, and it wasn't getting into the adjacent ditches, which was just, so it was essentially not getting into the ditches. There's a driveway there that came down at a fair slope as well that might have been blocking the runoff. It seemed to confine itself to get over the crest. Sorry for using my hands, but get over the crest, and with the gravel road at 15%, you can't truly grade crossfall on a gravel road. It essentially hit the crest and went to the east side. There was evidence of the ditches filling in with the gravel from the road. It definitely appeared as though the concerns from 1 or 2 events in 2021 were that the runoff in these big storms just wasn't getting into the ditches. The ditches were lined with fairly heavy duty concrete that should be able to withstand the flows if they get there. So we had some recommendations that were made at the top end. One was to regrade that driveway. Another was to extend the ditch, reinforce it, regrade it a bit on the west side to try and collect those flows. The east side didn't appear to be a problem, to be fair. In 2021, the east ditch didn't appear to be a problem. It was more the west side. The flows weren't getting there. The flows are overtopping the road over the crest and going down to the east. So 2021, we met out there. I believe it was twice. Some additional work was taking place by Southwest Middlesex Public Works Department. Some of our recommendations were done, some were not. We didn't perform inspection on those per se. It was done, and with the expectation that it would work. Later that year, we were called out a second time. At which point we got the contractor there to witness the work. It wasn't that we were looking for blame. It was to get them out there. They're familiar with the site. They know how they constructed the work. And at that point, some, I'll say, minor additional work was performed, essentially within the embankments to provide some additional riprap within the ditches to make it a little higher so that the road wouldn't slough off so easy. If the rock is lower than the road edge, you know, it's going to continue. If the rock is higher than the road, it'll stop that erosion. So that was, I believe it was 20 to 25,000, late 2021 that they did. I assume that's in your math. 2022, we were contacted again. So we went out again and it was a significant event. And this time, the true element of what's going on here revealed itself. We did a full survey of the site. Photos don't necessarily show everything, but full survey. We had our staff, you know, set up their level. We did a full grid of both of these slopes on day one, up and down each side, 5 or 10 meter grids, shot. There was no evidence of what we saw in 2022, which was a distinct drop in the soil that was not witnessed before, was not documented. We didn't see it. Nobody knew of it. We did a full survey. And if it existed, our survey guys would have stepped right over these elevation changes. It varied from, well, anywhere from 0 to 4 feet. So we're talking ground that's dropped 4 feet vertically up, essentially right on the spot. It wasn't evident in 2019. It wasn't evident in 2020 or 2021. It revealed itself in 2022. And at that point, we had detailed discussions. I think I met them out there once, just myself. And then I said, we need a second meeting, 2022, at least, might have been 3. We got our geotech out as well. Because at that point, it's a bit out of my realm. I'm not a geotech expert. It definitely appeared to be a slope failure that emanates. It's angled out of the bush on the east side. It emanates out of the bush and angles into the road. We shot it. We did a full topo in 2022. We overlaid our brand new grid on top of our original design, on top of our constructed works, and it revealed the situation we're in. The road has a very similar spot, again, that it had in 2019. But when you get over the crest, you look down, and when we first arrived, there was a definite location, sort of near the bottom, where it just hit the same spot, and it sloughs off, creeps into the road, and it just sloughs off. And the intent was build up these ditches, make them more robust with riprap. So 2022 is when we met again, surveyed it all, overlaid it, gave some recommendations, got our geotech out. And at that point, we started talking about options of how to remedy this. None of it revealed itself in what we saw, to be absolutely fair, in anything we did. But this, I'll call it it's just basically a vertical drop. It's there right now if anybody goes. I have photos of it. It's a 4-foot vertical drop where the soil is just sloughed off. It emanates out of the bush on the riverside. It's relatively straight. It creeps towards the road at an angle and it hits the road. And that's what's creating these issues. I have no doubt that's what it is. How do we fix it? Well, we first of all said, you better close this road off because it's just not safe. 2022, 2 or 3 times, it's starting to slough again. I certainly gave my recommendation, which Southwest Middlesex did, to close it off. Signs, I believe, were at both ends. Some concrete blocks were put in at the time. It wasn't a permanent solution per se, but it certainly would stop traffic from going either way. So that's satisfied safety issue. Then we're into what options do we have to remedy the situation or close it off permanently. So we looked at 2 or 3 options. We had our geotech engineer assist us with the more visual concern, which is how do we stop this slope failure? It isn't necessarily the road I'm talking about. It's how do we stop the slope on the east side? The west side is still relatively stable. It's the east side that's the problem. It's the river side, of course. They had done several designs of other projects, I assume in Ontario. He said there was one, half hour away we could look at. I don't believe we ever needed to. We were concentrating on what the options are. And the two that were stipulated to us were on the east side, of course, either a sheet piling wall to remedy the failure of the material, or a poured in place concrete vertical structure. So it's basically a wall you're going to pour on the east side. This isn't right against the road. That won't satisfy this. The problem is down below. So we came up with two options. The pricing for those, we estimated with our geotech assistants and our concrete guys inside the office. This includes redoing the road as well, or portions of it, right? This isn't the whole road, but including the roadway, including some of the ditches, including this wall, remedying the slope on the east side, I believe was $350,000 to $450,000. So at that point, we provided a letter, I think it was December 2022, with two options. We didn't actually have three from our letter. There's a third from Southwest Middlesex, but that's a relatively brief summary of this project. My recommendation at the end of the day, to be fair, in my letter was to close this off permanently. I don't believe we have any traffic counts out there. I don't know that it's warranted to have traffic counts, but how many people use it? All I've been led to believe is it's essentially the local farmers is what I'm led to believe. It didn't seem to warrant, in my opinion, spending another, $350,000 to $450,000. That's a lot of money. That was my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Learman, for that. It's not, it could not be described as good news, but we appreciate knowing what the situation is. That way we can make a better decision. And Mother Nature can beat us all at times. And those weather events that you're referring to, one was a 3¼ inch rain, 3.5 inch rain, and the other was approximately a 4-inch rain. And those are extreme rains for this geo area. Council, I'm sure there are questions and concerns. We can direct those to Mr. Learman or Mr. Castelli. And go ahead, Mr. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mayor. Now you're talking about 350 to 450,000. If we do this, there's no guarantee that it's gonna, in the next 10 years or whatever, we're gonna spend the same money. Like that's so. I really don't think we should be doing. I think we should be. I recommend close.
Yeah. So, Mr. Learman, there is some risk, even if we spent a pile of money on this. It's no guarantees that the road will perform for the long term.
Well, if we're talking about option one, which is to close, or option two to do partial, my recommendation would not be to do yearly remedies for sure. That's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you're either closing it off permanently or doing the 350 to 450. This is becoming, without a doubt, more of a geotechnical issue than mine.
An engineering issue,
Right?
yeah.
And we don't have them here to quantify it, but whatever is put in here, whether it's sheet piling or poured in place concrete or some other version, has to be significant. Can they guarantee it? That's a difficult question.
Yeah, okay, that's enough on that. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councillor Haggard, go ahead.
So, just to be clear, if we're looking up the top of the hill here, correct? And then as we come down that hill steep, on the James's side, that's the James part, is that where the water's coming down, going across the road and washing away the riverside? Is that it? So if we're at the bottom of the hill, looking up, right? So the James Farms on that side, and it's steep. So is the water coming from the bush side over the road, walking away the riverside? Is that the way I'm understanding it? Because you're saying if you were driving down the hill, here's the river, correct? That's where it's washing away. So is that water coming down the road you're saying and going off? Or is it coming off the hill in the first? And across the road and wash? I'm just trying to figure how, or is that just not stable and it's just gonna go on the riverside? I'm just trying to figure how that water's washing away. Is it coming off that side and across the road? Or is it coming down the road and going?
I think I have a three-part answer to that, and hopefully I'll remember all three. So in order, the slope failure on the, I'll call it the west side, the farm side, is relatively stable right now. We've shot it in 2022. We overlaid it. It's relatively stable. The ditches that are below it are, in my opinion, able to take those flows. I don't think we're seeing the flows from the hill coming down, jumping through the ditch, and overflowing the road. However, there is some inherent maintenance on this as well. We do have some pipes that cross the road, and they need to be cleared and maintained, and I guess added to your list, and I'm sure they were, to make sure they're operable. So there could be some flow from there, but the bigger issue that we saw was, and I believe it still exists, runoff does come over the crest with, I think it's the James Farm you said on the left side. Everything I kind of saw was, I'm at the top is where I describe it, and the sloughing off is down there. So there's definitely runoff from the road itself that just comes down. It's flat. It hits the peak. It's a very flat road heading south from the peak also. It's very flat. A lot of that contributes to it. But the bigger issue here is the inherent issue that's coming out of the bush. There's no doubt. You can see it. We could have a meeting out there if we wish. It's anywhere from 0 to 4 feet vertical drop. And that's the issue. How do we stop that? Because if we can address these ditches all we want, I can build them up again for 100,000. And this problem is not going to go away because we haven't addressed the problem, which is the slope failure. You know, it's almost on the riverside. There's no doubt. That's where it's coming right out of the bush. I didn't carry on into the bush to see it, but you can see it. It angles there. It's visual. I think those are my three parts, but I mean, the rainfall is not, it's not ironic. I mean, the timing is there. When you get these significant events, it assists with the problem that's underground. There's just movement of soil that just takes whatever's there and just moves it. And it's difficult to quantify, but it's
For years, since I was going out there, that road always, when you came down this, it would go this way. So I think over time, when the river moving, this.
Yep. Almost undercurrents, yeah. And as an engineer, you realize too that no doubt at all that we're getting warmer and wetter all the time. And these extreme rainfalls, you know, we've had states of emergency in the last 3 years on rainfalls on our road networks because of that, and we'll continue to do so. Yeah, Councillor Bink.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, I agree everything what the engineer said. I've looked at it a number of times over the last few years. I'm the councillor in that ward. I don't live that far away. So I agree. I don't think it's really fair to the taxpayers, to the ratepayers, to put in another 450,000. I agree with that. The problem is how we're going to close this. First of all, and I talked to Morrow about that. There's one farmer that has 10 acres at the bottom. And so why would he want to buy half of the road for 10 acres and not use that road? So I think that's going to be the bigger question of how do we close it? And my personal opinion is I'm not necessarily in favor of closing the whole road. I talked to the owner of where Manuel Menez used to live. That's the last house. He doesn't really want the turnaround right at his property, because what will happen is people will come and dump their garbage here. And so there's a culvert further down. So I could see closing it maybe at the culvert. And so that he has a little bit further leeway from his house. And then conversely, the other way on Big Bend Road, there's a straightaway till you hit that hill. So who knows what's going to happen in the years ahead. At one time, towards Craftside Road, we had residential zoning on the river. And so when there's no obstructions straightaway of roads, I don't see us giving that away for nothing. Because you have to look at the future, what's best for Southwest Millside. But in the end, I do agree that what the engineer is saying, you can see the crevice right there. There's a foot of crevice, and for quite an area. So I do agree that we have to at least close that part of the road.
Thank you. Yeah, I too am in agreement that in closing that road, we have to be somewhat analytical on our thinking. Even school bus turnarounds and things like that are things that we have to be cognizant of. There are children being picked up on that road by school bus, and for the convenience of the driver of that bus, we certainly have to make sure that there's adequate room to turn that bus around. They may that is a subject that may have to be viewed tomorrow by your team when you go out there and look. Any comments on that?
Yes, through your worship, I agree with you, and a turnaround would be required, obviously for buses or even our plow equipment. Turnaround. I agree with Councillor Vink's idea about the maybe adjusting where that turnaround is, but we have to be cognizant because if we get it too far away from the residential properties, they're almost like our eyes and ears out there. And I find if you have that turnaround too far away from a residential property, you sometimes get some unlawful activity that occurs down there. And it's nice to keep that a little bit closer to the residential property. So that this way we've got, some eyes and ears out there looking and monitoring that. But again, that can all be addressed, and to address his concern in regards to that one property, we haven't yet spoke to the property owners yet. Negotiations haven't started. This is just to get direction from council to start those negotiations, and concerns like that hopefully can be addressed during those talks.
Yeah, I think there is a sweet spot where that road should end and where it resumes again, and it'll take some analysis to determine that. To see what conveniences the property owners, and it's a busy, Jody and I, Councillor Hagan and I both know that that's a busy spot when the pickle bang comes off, isn't it? It is. It's a pretty good.
A lot of pickle.
A lot of fishing. That's a pretty good fishing hole right there when the band comes off. Yeah, we've both been there, Jody.
You talking about the 10 acres back from the hill on the riverside?
No. That part of that farm.
Yeah, I don't get.
On either side.
Okay, so is this gonna be, staff gonna come back to us on this, Mike? Additional, how do we do, close and allocate the road allowance adjacent and to begin negotiations with the property owners? It just doesn't seem like it's worded to the nature of what council is discussing there.
It totally is. Just one second. Okay, so if council is looking to keep moving with this, which I assume that you are, the recommendation that is made by staff, the recommendation will always be the one that's most financially viable for the municipality. So if you're stuck on the second portion of the recommendation, the first part is easy. Council directs staff to implement option one, and it's close River Drive and allocate the road allowance to the adjacent property owners as a private road. Okay, that's easy. That can be done. But the part that Councillor Vink is flagging is the second piece, that staff can be authorized to meet with the affected property owners along River Drive and negotiate the terms to transfer ownership of the municipal road allowance. That might mean us shuffling some things or getting the neighbors all on the same page to maybe maneuver some things around so everybody's in favor and it works out well for everybody. So that's what you're actually asking us to do. The closing part's easy. We can get that part done. It is done. We go to plan B, if you will, or the second phase, and we start meeting with the owners and help negotiating what they'd like to see. And that would include any of the length or turnaround points and everything there. And then we can bring that back to council and see if that's suitable. But the closure, I think, is the main part here to say, get on to step B.
So we're accepting the discussions of council among several councillors have been to close River Road and instruct staff to begin negotiations with the adjacent property owners to determine the best use and the safest and to address the concerns of safety in the most effective manner and bring the report back to council. Is that basically what you're looking at? Okay, Don, you comfortable with that?
If that's the part, then I would like to change the third recommendation and that staff bring back a report to council so council can authorize the mayor and clerk to authorize the executed documents.
Yeah, Alan will agree with that, I'm sure.
I'm so glad our lawyer's here today.
Yeah, I hope you're listening, Wayne. Yeah,
Only getting billed for part of this.
yeah. But you know, I'll tell you, council, any municipality with a name like River Road has this problem. You know, on the way to London, just before the Kilworth Bridge, that road's been closed forever. And it's just the nature of the beast. You get a water course as significant as the Thames River, and it has all kinds of ramifications on roads that travel the shoreline. Yeah, always have. Yes, Alan.
Through the mayor, can I have the CEO reread that third motion? Thank you.
Okay. Is there yes, Don, to move that? Thank you. Seconder for that. Councillor Haggett. Discussion? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'm just wondering if staff has contacted any of the owners yet.
Sorry, Mark. No. Oh, I was just gonna say, I know we were using our liaison through Councillor Vink. But I don't think we've spoken.
Yeah, through your worship, no, we haven't directly spoke to any of the residents out there until we brought the report today and see what council's direction was. I didn't want to go out there and make any promises that I couldn't keep, right? So I wanted to have a discussion today to see what our direction was.
Okay,
Thank you.
and there's approximately 3 property owners, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, when I was through your worship, when I was looking at Middlesex mapping, it appeared that there was 3 owners that were adjacent to that way.
Okay. Okay, it's been duly moved and seconded. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. Finance, Mike will be doing this in Kristen's absence. It's regarding the sewer fees totaling 2857 for a customer identified by the number. Mike, this would you like to enlighten council on this briefly?
I would if I knew more about it, but it seems like it's just a typical charge in excess of particular consumption that the council has passed.
Okay,
I have my
sounds
details
good.
on
Yep,
that.
no, it looks just kind of a due diligence maintenance thing. Council, any questions on this? Yes. Yep, okay. So that staff being instructed to notify GPS. Okay. Yeah, no problem. No, that's a good point.
Yes, Your Worship, we'll make sure to
Okay,
get that done.
good. Thank you very much, Maureen. Going back to the agenda, the finance consideration, referring, reimbursing the customer who is getting the rebate as indicated here. Any questions? And council, we do this all the time, very often in terms of a break, the water does not go through the system. So we're not charged by the province on it. So, and they have been billed for that charge. We'll, is there a mover and a seconder? Okay, Councillor McCollum, a seconder for that. Councillor Myers. Discussion? In favor? Carried. And notice of motion number 9. Councillor Haggett, your motion concerning the request for the removal of overnight parking restrictions during the summer months. Would you like to speak to that at all, or does the recommendation speak for itself?
The notice of motion, the required time was made as a notice, and it can't be discussed at that meeting. So this is actually the formal notice of motion, which is pretty clear, is that council directs staff to investigate the removal of overnight parking restrictions during the summer months, and that staff provide a report describing the implications of removing overnight parking restrictions, which we are more than prepared to do.
Okay.
At the next meeting.
That sounds good, Councillor Haggett, and we'll see what the ramifications of that would be following staff study. Mover for the recommendation will be Councillor Haggett, and a seconder for that, Councillor Myers. Discussion? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
To thank Councillor Haggett for his motion, and I just wondered if we could tighten it up a bit with dates. What date were you looking, like maybe May to October, or something a little more specific in summer months?
Yeah, that's not just not on something in there.
Mhm. Yeah, and that can be part of the report. Well, very often, sometimes during tartan days, car show, they like to clean street car show. Sometimes fall just prior to the fair parade, when the parade goes down, they want the street has been swept in the past. Right. Yeah. 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 Almost the flower planters up and down dates pretty close to that. Yes, go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, actually, I'd like to see it a little bit later than Labor Day, because I believe, say, City of London, it's almost till November 1st. I'd rather see May 1st to November 1st, something like that. So maybe we can look at a few other surrounding communities when we come up with dates.
That could be part of the report. Might take note of that. And we'll have a better understanding of following staff study on the subject. Okay, any more questions? All in favor? Carried. Correspondence and petitions. Alan is trying to save us an annual ritual here in terms of allowing the sale of liquor on this particular commercial property without mentioning any names, but we do this on a yearly basis. And even I think the LCBO sympathizes with us to some extent, knowing that we have to deal with this all the time. And they really aren't too concerned about it. Alan, could you pick the subject up and give council a brief explanation of what your intentions are?
Yes, Mayor. So this is a requirement by LSBO. We discussed it a few weeks back. This is being brought forward again because there was some changes in regulations, and we want to make sure that we are being open for business. So this clarifies that we mean that they can be open whenever the LCBO says they can be open. We left it very broad, and it also has a whereas before it, indicating that if the LCBO inquires, we mean we're open for business.
And the recommendation is for you on page 5 of the agenda. Any concerns or questions? Dawn? Okay, you're okay. It's just a question of efficiency and the convenience to the commercial venue. Okay, would someone move the recommendation? No discussion. Dawn, seconder? Ed? Okay. Got it. No discussion. All in favor? Carried. Just to increase some of the clerk's efficiency. And thank you for flagging that, Alan, and for the benefit of council's efficiency. Unfinished business. There is none. New business. We were going to, Councillor Vink will take your inquiry on the paving. Would you like to introduce your question to the chair, and we'll allow CAO to see if he can accommodate a response to you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Sorry, I didn't notify staff ahead of time. Much like the municipal hall, I'm interested if there was tenders put out, and that's basically it.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this in two parts. One, we followed the procurement policy once again. Something that I'm actually pretty stringent on. So we reviewed it, we talked about it, and I'll educate council a little bit as well. If it's a request for tender, that means we know what we want. If it's a request for proposal, it's that we want ideas from the potential vendor. So if it's a request for proposal, it has to come back to council even before it goes out. Request for tender, we know what we want, so we don't have to do that step. So that's nice. In this case, the jobs were $48,000 and $27,000 respectively. They were underneath not only our tender amount, but they fell into the category of request for quotation in form of bid solicitation, which I think we ended up getting 4 prices as opposed to just the 3. And we went again with the 2 lowest on this one. And they don't require us to come back. So that's my answer to your first part of your question. Second part is I'm recognizing a bit of a disconnect. And I've heard it through the messaging over starting of something significant like the repairs to the office here or the paving of the parking lot that citizens may inquire with you about. So I think I'm probably better when it comes to things that we don't have to come back to council and get approval for in this room, is we send her an email and let you know what's going on. And that's why Marla approached me and I said, you better send an email out on the parking lots that are about to be paved because they were approved in the 2023 capital and those projects are happening. And if council would like to know a few others too, I think we bought a turn more. There's been a few other things that fall in the category of us getting going. And that threshold's there so that in order we can get things done. But I'm pretty stringent on my timelines with staff and values because that's what you hang your hat on. And those are the rules that are set forth. So I'm just giving you the guidelines that we went by here, but and at the same time recognizing that we could probably send a summary email every once in a while to say, here's what's going on.
Communications are important. Yep. Certainly follow up, Councillor Vink.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Allen. Yeah, I agree with everything you say, but on the other hand, we could go to a function and we get asked, and then they'll might ask, well, how much does it cost? So would it be any trouble when you send an email that the lowest estimate was 48,000 for this particular project? Because people expect us to have the answer.
Well,
Yeah, communication's key. You reach out and ask us, we'll answer you. So that's not a problem.
it is. It's fair. We can communicate better, perhaps. But then again, we also, when this council or any council passes a budget, you're given authority to direct the monies to be spent in a particular manner. And we have a procurement policy the council also has endorsed. And, we do want that followed. But certainly there's any organization, you're never done improving communications. And I have some empathy for that we want to be kept in the loop. I too get those same questions. Yeah, Deputy Mayor Scholl, I
Thank you, Mayor
suppose.
Mayhew. I'd just like to make a comment on that comment that we look on the budget as a blueprint.
Mhm.
And that's why it's important to keep council informed on where we're at.
Yeah.
Because we're not making firm, final decisions there. We're saying, here's the. That's, I think, what Martin's getting.
Yep, and I've used that terminology blueprint many times. Deputy Mayor.
If I may, this is not a problem. So this is something we can easily do. If the item comes in over, so you're aware, we would have to come back and ask you for those additional funds and see if you still wanted to proceed with the project. That wasn't the case. So if and ever we miss the opportunity to inform you that a project's on its go, the easy answer to the resident in that time is, well, obviously it didn't come in over budget, because we would have to come back at that point. Not that I want that to be your answer. So I think the communication is to say, here it is. You've asked me for what you wanted. Thank you for asking. And we'll make sure we include that. Say, hey, we started the paving. By the way, it's under budget. And it is on both locations. So that's just something for everybody to know. Exact numbers off the top of my head, I think was 48,000 here. And the other one, obviously probably about 30, because you had $80,000 for the project, and we did come in about $78,000 for both pieces. We're quite happy about that. So thanks for asking.
Okay, good questions. Okay. Yes, Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear that they're doing some paving in Napa too, is that right? Not I'm aware of.
The one good sentence my grandfather always taught me is never start a sentence with if or I heard, and I can tell you, so I can tell you that is not a. As good administration always, I heard, as good administration always does. I think we had some areas measured there to have some future pricing for consideration for a future budget. So we did have a contractor while in the area say, hey, provide us some pricing on some things we could consider and look forward to, and that, but that is not in this year's situation at all.
No, if they do it, they're not getting paid, Don. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No addendum items. There's no other business. Can move on. County Council and conference updates. Seeing none. We, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor, I attended the Lower Thames meeting and just, and also the fire board meeting. The Lower Thames meeting, I think they're going to get a contact with Mike Henry, because I believe there's going to be agreements that have to be made. And probably they've already contacted you, Mike. And also I attended the fire board meeting recently, and I told the CEO there, Janet Denkers, that send the minutes to you, because you're the new CEO. I don't think you've received any minutes. So we've had 2 meetings, and I believe our contract with them runs out at the end of this year. So it's important that we have communication. And also, they're going to a new radio system. They're probably going to go through the Sarnia police station. So for our area around the Kilmartin area, it may have some effect. So CAO and Morrow should be aware of that maybe as well.
Yeah, on those communications, there is changes in technology that from analog to digital, and that will be parts of the discussion in the future as well. Okay, thank you, Councillor Vink, for that. It's interesting information. Okay, any announcements? See none. It is 3:48. We have the opportunity to have a conversation with on a subject of solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. May I have a motion to go into closed session at 3:48 p.m. as per subsection 239 of the Municipal Act? Moved by Don, seconded by Jody. Discussion? In favor? Carried. Mike, I'll give you the gavel. And before we begin, we'll just give Alan a minute to get us off. Here. Wayne, thank you for coming.